Welcome back. It's Karen Vaughn on 106.7 WTLC on WTLCFM.com. Today is World Suicide Prevention Day. And coming back to join us to have this conversation of resources that will help you and your family, that will help you and those that you love. It's just such a vital conversation that we definitely need to continue to have. And this is why we do this each and every year on World Suicide Prevention Day. And September is National Suicide Prevention Month. So all month long, you'll be hearing resources across all of our radio brands here at Radio One. And thank you to our sponsor, Eskenazi, for joining us in these efforts this year. Again, the Be Well Crisis Helpline, you can call now, 211. You could also call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, which is 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255. And if you have your phone in your hand and you just want to text someone and they'll give you a call, you can text IN to 741-741. That's text IN to 741-741. We've talked about suicide in the Black and Brown communities. We are going to add COVID-19 to the discussion because it's been a really tough year and a half. There are so many things that we've dealt with during COVID-19 that we've never dealt with before. Seeing close family and loved ones, pass away on our phones, unable to hold their hands during the process, job loss, not being able to provide for your family. There's just so many things that have happened in the last year. How has COVID affected what you guys do on a day-to-day basis? How has it added to what you do 24/7 when you're at work now?
I think COVID has affected everything, every aspect of our life. And so, to answer your question, it really starts with us personally. I mean, COVID has affected me no different than anybody else. There's periods that I feared for my life and for my kids' lives. And am I going to get sick? And then I'm tired of sitting at home and I'm stressed out and I'm not sleeping and I'm not eating well. And I mean, it starts with us. And then, we take that baggage, our own personal baggage. And I mean, all of us, whether, it's coming onto the radio or whether you are a physician in a hospital, or whether you're a server at a restaurant. I mean, it is who are probably some of the most, forgotten about folks, those folks that are in the hospitality industry. They've been frontline workers from the start. But it starts with us and how it personally affects us. And then we go in and we put on a brave face and we help other folks with their problems. But from that perspective, man, we're seeing the effects. We will continue to see the effects for a long, long, long time to come. The CDC back in May of 2020 started doing this household pulse survey on talking about adults and specifically looking at anxiety and depression and the prevalence. And as recent as last week, the last one I think was like August 16th through the 30th, 31% of Hoosier adults said that they were experiencing moderate to severe symptoms related to depression or anxiety. It doesn't end. We have seen, and it's not just COVID. I mean, we could say the pandemic, but it's really 2020. We've seen a confluence of external influencers like we've never seen before, I think, in the history of the modern world. We've had periods where we have focused on there's been racial tension, or we've focused on social equity, or there's been political turmoil. I mean, all sorts of stuff. But looking at it all put together with a global pandemic and the social injustice that we've had and the political turmoil. And now we're coming up on Saturday, the 20-year anniversary of 9/11. I mean, there are so many external influencers going on right now, there's not a person on this earth that can say that it has not affected them in a negative way as far as their overall their overall wellness goes. We've had issues with accessibility to healthcare. That's a whole nother issue that people that are in need of services aren't necessarily able to access them. There's 2, 3, 4 week waiting periods for therapists, even when we're talking about telehealth. When you talk about communities of individuals, Black and brown communities, there's always been a shortage within neighborhoods as far as any sort of healthcare goes. We do a really, really bad job of bringing the services that people need, where they need them, how they need them, when they need them. The mental health world has always been, when you look at mental health crises, it has always been the exact opposite of the way that it should be. If your house is on fire, you pick up the phone, you call 911, and the fire department comes to you. If you are having a mental health crisis, you have to physically do something. You have to get in the car and go somewhere, or someone takes you somewhere, or you call and the wrong folks who are not trained as mental health professionals come out to your house, and that's where things go terribly wrong. And we need to change the way that we operate. We need to change the system. I'd like to say that our system is broken, but if you say something is broken, I think that implies that it worked at some point the way that it should have, and it's never worked effectively. So, long story long, COVID has exacerbated every aspect of our lives, and anything that we were dealing with beforehand, as well as added a whole new set of issues within, as we're talking about mental health, whether it's actually a diagnosis or symptoms related to a diagnosis for everybody. I mean, it's been a year that we will never forget. And I say buckle up, because more is yet to come.
When I'm thinking of COVID, I'm also thinking of what Marcus said earlier of just pushing through, and his mother didn't have time to think about it. She just had to continue to push through. And I think many of us going through COVID, losing a job or minimal hours at a job, right? Trying to take care of your family, trying to find, a school for your child to where they can go to school virtually because they can't stay home with you because you have to go to work, right? Then I'm just thinking of all these things that individuals have gone through in the last year.
But by the same, but you know what? But by the same token, every person has a different experience.
Right.
Some people with COVID, if you use an analogy, here I go again with the analogies. If you use an analogy of what people have experienced, there are some people have been in a yacht during COVID.
No, okay? I get that.
Yeah, there are some people who have been in a rowboat with an engine. And then there are people that have been in a boat with no oars and no engine. So how COVID has impacted individuals, specifically different communities of color, the disparities, I mean, they're too numerous to mention. And I think that it's even getting worse now because they see everybody getting back to normal. And there are individuals, and I'm speaking from the Latino perspective, Latinos weren't privy to stimulus checks. They're the ones that kept going. They're the ones that were out in the fields, that we got to eat these bright vegetables and bright fruits in our homes with our family sitting at the table. Whereas they live in multi-generational homes where they can't go to the doctor because they don't have the insurance, or because they don't have the proper documentation, or they have the fear that once they go to the doctor, they're going to be arrested and then therefore deported. So COVID, in regards to its impact, has a rippling effect, and its impact is different among all the populations. And I think that is something that we need to look at seriously when we try to get back to normal, or I say the new normal. Because
there's no going back to normal.
Right, exactly.
That's the picture I was trying to paint of, we're not going to go back to normal ever. So how do we, one, come to grips, because I don't want to say accept, but come to grips that this is the new world that we live in, right? Because some feel that we're going to have some type of normalcy and it's never going to be 2019 again, right? So how do we move forward in this new world with what we're dealing with, whether I am home trying to make ends meet or I'm on a yacht because I have a business that flourished during COVID, right? Because regardless of what you bring to the table financially, we all know that everyone suffers, that everyone has a moment, or individuals have a moment to where they're unhappy, right? And that unhappiness turns into other things. So how can we, from COVID spawning all of this dissension, how do we work through it? And what would you tell to those that are listening now that are going through it and need help?
Wow.
You're throwing all these, wow, we really need to sit back and think questions at us.
Well, I think what's that analogy that people always say? We just got to keep on going. We just got to keep on keeping on. And I think that's the mindset that I know my people is experiencing. We're a very resilient population. Latinos have faced a lot of adversity, as well as Black communities. We've had to deal and maintain with what we have, with the little that we have. And that resiliency has, I know from a perspective from a few families that I've spoken with, they see themselves as an opportunity to better themselves. Because even though they lack the tools and resources, it makes us a stronger person. It makes them a better person. And that is may not necessarily always be true for everyone or applicable to everyone.
Yes.
But both populations, brown and Black, are very resilient, and we will get through this. But we have to be there for each other, and we need to be kind to one another. And more importantly, we need to be kind to ourselves. In another interview that we were doing, you have a single mom who's extra $300 of unemployment ended on Monday. She's looking at an eviction notice with 5 or 6 kids and barely making ends meet. And it's just really, it is a time where the community, family members, organizations who are a little bit better off to step up to the plate and help these individuals who, because of whatever environment or circumstance that they're in, they're not functioning full throttle. And we need to be mindful of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Marcus, your thoughts?
The keep it pushing mindset is it's kind of what you have to adopt when you're trying to get to the next level as far as financially, with stability coming from some of these environments and neighborhoods. When I think back to the beginning of this whole COVID pandemic, I lost one of my friends to gun violence. And a week later, one of my buddies was one of the first cases that I recall deaths due to COVID. And it happened in like a week's time. And I never had a chance to stop and collect my thoughts or get my feelings together when I lost my first friend, because having a good job, or at least a decent job, and being so demanding, I can't really put my feelings or emotions in the forefront because I got to still show up to work. I still have to do my job to the best of my ability. And to add a death due to COVID 7 days later, and getting the news while at work, it was like a shock to my management, because I'm still trying to go to the workroom floor. I'm still trying to perform my job the best I know how. And it's confusing to them because they're not used to some of the unfortunate things that we're used to. Indianapolis is experiencing 200 homicides a year right now. Those are some of my friends of my friends. because I'm only 31 years old and I still have friends who never found a way out. So they weren't even in a position to understand that I could lose 2 friends in 1 week and still be ready to do my job because of the tough skin that we have garnered over the years, because we don't know anything else but to push through. So I think with me personally, it's more about reaching back to your friends and making sure they're okay, having the peace of mind to check on your parents. My oldest son, who was 12, he just he maybe had COVID 2 weeks ago, was quarantined, and his health is doing a lot better now. But this is 18 months after it started, so there's no time frame on it. We don't know who's going to be affected, but school just started back. So you send our kids back to school. They've been in school for a week, and now half our kids coming home with COVID cases. So it's hard to even figure out where to start. The same with my daughter, who was exposed in the school system, taking a week to even notify us after being in contact with somebody who tested positive for COVID. So it's just a lot to keep up with, and it's hard to say where to start. I know you just kind of have to keep that resiliency as far as the peace of mind to know that my sister is going through it the same as I, my parents, my friends. I need to check on my kids. If we can get that narrative to ring true throughout the community, I think we can start to at least have some type of wherewithal, trying to move forward, because the normal is over with.
Marcus, where do you draw your strength from?
I think it's actually from the people that I talk to on a daily basis. Being that I am not a healthcare professional, I didn't go to school for that. It comes from experience, my own mental health issues, things I struggle with, and understanding my gift and my talent in this space, that I've been introverted for so long, and my introspection can help other people that don't understand how to dig that deep and be that honest with themselves. So I speak to people daily through text, call, social media. I make posts at least once a week to check on my friends, even just social media friends who might be just associates or, these things. I want to check on anybody that I can. And I look for people who are saying, if I say, give me a rating from 1 to 10 and you say a 3, I need to check on you, because that 3 is no good with me. And I'm not asking you to tell me how you feel 1 through 10, just so I can have a comment on my status. So I just check in with people who say they're in bad spaces, and encouraging them and giving them the advice that maybe I need for myself helps me just to keep it pushing, especially when they reciprocate that it was helpful, or they really needed somebody to talk to and they chose me to be that person.
Well, thank you for being a warrior. We need more warriors like you, Marcus.
Definitely.
Today is World Suicide Prevention Day, our special programming powered by Eskenazi Health. Thank you to Eskenazi. Thank you to David. Thank you to Alice. Thank you to Marcus. And we still have more to talk about in the next hour. We've talked about COVID this segment. And, to continue on that, we're all getting back to work, going back to school. How does that affect our mental health and our well-being? We'll be back with more on 106.7 WTLC.